Good morning from sunny Indianapolis, Indiana, the Flatwork Kings studio. Here with my co-host, Phil Laraway, and myself serving as your host, Will Mattingly, creator of Flatwork Kings, president of Mattingly Concrete here in Indianapolis. Here to share a little bit about a few different topics. What are we talking about today, Phil?
Well, it's all up in the air from here. Let's just start off with just your current role and a typical day that it consists of for you as owner of a company.
Oh, God. Yeah, so I like to be fluid in my role, but I serve as the president of Mattingly Concrete. And among other things, I think it's turning into a job of inspiration. You gotta try and show up for everybody and keep everybody believing in the system that you have going. I think when you get to a certain point in business, so that's really the full-time gig now, is just planning for the future. What does next year and 3 years, 5 years look like, and so on. We got a great team around us. Very fortunate for that the day-to-day items get handled very well. So we're lucky for that. More specifically, I wanted to kind of dive into contractors being infamous for certain cliche. I don't know if cliche is a good word for it, but homeowners see contractors in a certain light, and we have to do things to combat that, right? So, contractors are known for showing up on their own time, not sticking to a schedule.
Just showing up late to an appointment, not having a set schedule. Right.
Absolutely. Just general unprofessionalism. If that's a diagnosis, we're all guilty of that sometimes. So, I will say that I credit our team for overcoming those challenges in some pretty neat ways. You got to think outside the box, but as a small business or as a contractor, you're dealing with people. It's 100% a people business. Your product is second to that. So, what we did was really turn around and look in the mirror and say, how can we be better? What are people complaining about in today's world? And it's rarely the product. A lot of times it's, hey, I got a patio done last week, but the guy, it took a month to get it done because he showed up every third day to do things, that weren't scheduled right, or the concrete wasn't set up on time, or the layout changed from what I discussed with him. There were no notes taken, a few frustrations, but I really like the patio, and a lot of contractors get that recommendation at best. And we have to take very poignant strides in trying to get a good recommendation, one that's just pure, hey, I had a great experience with this contractor. They came on time, gave me an estimate promptly. I remembered everybody's name I worked with. I wasn't passed around between too many people. I had one point of contact. The price was good. They showed up on time and they did the job efficiently. They never left the job site. They never said they had to go pick something up and disappear for 2 days. So, long and short of it, Mattingly Concrete has been fortunate enough to kind of crack that egg, and that's been a huge part of our success.
So a lot of the professionalism that you're talking about, having to grow from that, is how, from the early days, how it's grown since then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, early on we weren't unlike any. There's nothing that made us stand out. You could get on Google and search concrete contractors, and we were right there with everybody else, right? But what are you doing to stand out? Are you advertising more than others? Are you doing better than others? Are you performing the work better, or is your quality higher? Is your experience different? And if you can check a lot of those boxes, I mean, that what really makes homeowners tick is convenience. And an inconvenience is, showing up late, making homeowners wait around for you, get a decision, forcing them to get in uncomfortable situations just to suit your day. Oh, we'll be back. Go on.
Oh, okay. So, what's the hardest obstacle trying to, keep things afloat and keep things like throughout the years? What would you think the hardest obstacle is to overcome? in this industry? Like you said, like it's a dime a dozen for
contractors. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many. And with concrete especially, there's not much special about it, right? I mean, you can go to Lowe's and get the tools to do what we do. There's not necessarily a certification that you have to do, right? I mean, you're not just going to go rent a spot and open up a doctor's office. That's you need to get a medical degree and do a lot of hard work to do that. But honestly, for concrete contracting, I mean, there's nothing stopping anybody from doing the work as long as you can be dedicated and do a good job. Now, occasionally you have people pop up, especially with the advent of social media and the way advertising gets done. And I mean, the world's changing. You see contractors that will pop up and disappear and pop up and disappear. And, a lot of it goes back to having an established history. We had that, but we didn't have any reviews. We were like 25 years in and had one review on Google.
Yeah, it wasn't as prominent as it is now.
Yeah, I believe we paid a friend to do our first review. And, that leads to, you got to fake it to make it, right?
I think I saw that review.
Yeah. I mean, the very first Mattingly Concrete review on Google, we had a friend fill out for us. And, I partially feel bad about it today, but 300 reviews later that are honestly true is we really jump started a good thing. So it's nice.
Gratitude to that guy for all the success that you've achieved.
100%. Yeah, that guy will never let us live it down. So you have to pay attention to those things though. Have you Googled yourself recently? I mean, is somebody out there saying something about your company that you can help handle? I mean, occasionally you might get a bad review just from somebody that says, they did a great job, blah, 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 blah. And then it's a 3-star and you're like, what's that all about? And you go to the bottom and they're like, well, I really wished, my light post got knocked over and they never mentioned anything about it. And, that's where you have an opportunity to call them and say, hey, how can we fix this for you? And how can I get you to, go in and edit your review when we're done fixing it for you? It's just a simple communication thing.
I think most people, at least people like me, when I see a 1-star review on any company, I always take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because, chances are, there's some people have bad experiences, but then you look at the comment with the 1-star review and it's, well, they didn't meet my price quota. So
yeah,
and then, okay, well then move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So leveraging good reviews is very important.
Very, very, yeah. Especially if you want to scale your business or grow or do any of those things, but you really have to be careful. I mean, I think some of our people on our team could attest. There was a period of time where, growth was more important than customer service. I'll admit that, and our first and second year, we were like really gung-ho about growing and growing and growing. We got a lot of flack from people that just said, hey, you guys are totally unorganized, and it wasn't all the time. It was just, here and there, but it was enough to be really, bogging us down. It was enough where we had to really do some damage control. We got to know a good attorney that year. I mean, there was just a lot of things a lot of bumps in the road that we had to learn some expensive lessons. We had to, replace somebody's siding on their house because we were being hard-headed about, the results of the project. Next thing you know, we were on the losing end of a couple things. So it's humbling to go through that and come out on the other end realizing that, good reviews do matter and good reviews truthfully come from good customer service. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we're a business. We're not just a concrete guy. We're not just somebody with a wheelbarrow and a pickup truck. We have to separate ourselves. So, that's really, I think, where we've established ourselves, and we've been, fortunate to do that. We've got, it's not easy. It's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah.
But if you commit to it and you get your team to commit to it, there's you can really start to see the fruits of that labor quickly.
So, yeah, like you mentioned team, you have to get your team to commit to it just as much as you do. How do you create the work environment that is good to keep others motivated?
Well, I think some would have differing opinions on that, but I think, letting people work in their own ways, I think what we've all had to come to terms with is that people will do things differently, as long as the end result is the same and what we want, how it gets done is sometimes unimportant, as long as it's not, in relation to safety, life and limb, or the reputation of the company. You can do things a little differently as long as you're not driving a box truck in the left lane on the highway. It looks bad. That's a reputation thing. So we prefer if you drive in the right lane, and that's, not a preference but a requirement. Now, when it comes to whether you use a wood stake or a steel stake, those are things that we've had to learn to accept. Okay, if we grow our business and we bring people on, we want them to be happy. We aren't going to micromanage those people to death and say, you need to, use a blue ink pen. I don't like how you're using black. I don't like how you're, So
Yeah.
there's certain things you just got to let go of.
Yeah.
And letting go to grow has been a big part of Flatwork Kings, and just, trying to get that message across.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to. I mean, it seems like you've had a lot of employees over the years stay loyal, and not a whole lot of turnover there, and that's impressive.
All these years without an HR person too. I have to toot my own horn on that note. It's from the get go. I mean, whether from the point we had 7 people or 25 or 50 or whatever, it was really just like you said. Once you have the team on board with the mission and providing a good service for people beyond just the concrete, it just kind of it gets that steam going, and it almost carries a little bit of itself. It probably starts to get some momentum, I would say. So when a new person comes on board, they kind of understand the program just through osmosis. They're there and they're like, wow, these guys hold themselves to a higher standard. This isn't a place where I can come work and expect to play Tetris and, really have anything to show at the end of the day, because we're a big results driven company in terms of employees and employment. It's just, hey, if the job is good and you're doing your job, whether you're, a salesperson or a project manager or, an office clerk, whatever, at the end of the day, we have just basic expectations for results. We don't, how you handle that, whether you stop at 16 gas stations throughout the day or whatever your routine is fine. I'll say that partially. Obviously we have crews. We don't want them at gas stations 16 times a day, but we all have a job to do, and the results at the end of the day are just the only thing, really the first thing we start with in terms of grading.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you've also been able to build a system to be able to communicate through, not only with the customers, but with everybody in each step of the job and each process. And so communication has been a huge, and that's where a lot of contractors lack, I feel like. That's like the biggest leap to get over is, learning to communicate. It's better to over-communicate, if anything. Yeah, because people just want to know what's going on. I mean, hey, if people don't like to give bad news, but they'd rather hear bad news and not hear anything at all, and then find out themselves or just...
Yeah. No, I think the first year that we were trying to grow, we were trying to scale up with like the same systems that we were using the year before, and we were just like, well, we can just fit more on the whiteboard, and that didn't work, because you could sell 50 jobs and think, oh, I'm way ahead, this is great, but all of a sudden you have a mountain of customer service in front of you. Just because their name is on the whiteboard doesn't mean that Mrs. and Mr. Smith believe it. They're like, oh, I've dealt with contractors before. They, I'm going to pay them a deposit and then I'm going to get blown off for months. And they told me I'm on the schedule for the fall. I'm supposedly on Mattingly's schedule for August. I don't know that for sure. There's nothing that says, they're lucky if they get an email, right? So we hired our first office person pretty much exclusively for that task, exclusively to like call customers. We said, Karen at the time was her name. And we said, your job is to answer the phone, book appointments. And we didn't have any quota for like how many appointments we wanted to do. It was just, hey, book appointments and communicate with the customer. If they call our phone, we want to be able to answer it. But prior to that, it was ringing to my phone. Or it was ringing to my dad's phone or somebody's phone, and it was, you could hear a bobcat jackhammering in the background, and the person's like, yeah, this gives me a really cozy feeling. Like I'm going to send this guy 15 grand or whatever ahead of time, and then he's going to put me on for the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's running a saw right now, like what kind of notes could he be taking about this conversation?
Did he hear what I'm even saying?
Yeah. I have some very important news for this guy, and he's running a jackhammer, so it's not, those are just little things that you have to really step back again, look in the mirror and understand that this is how people perceive contractors. And this is something that you have to fight against. And just doing that, through just kind of winging it every day and saying, well, this is how I am unapologetically. That's fine. But you do have to understand that if you want your business to succeed or to grow or any of those kind of things, it's going to rely on your customers being happy with you. So you can keep fighting those insane battles of the same headaches over and over again. Oh, this person's getting a little unsettled now because they don't think they're on the schedule, and we do have them on. We haven't moved them back, or if you had to move them back, but those are things that you can set up, just little things that you can set up ahead of time to ensure
make things easier on yourself.
100%.
Yeah. And what are some of the things that old school concrete guys do still that they, maybe need advice on for, making life a little easier on the job and just throughout the entire workday?
Well, yeah, I don't want to get too technical with things, technically that can make your life easier, like, having nice equipment and things like that. But, just investing in, really it starts with knowing your business, just because grandma might have showed you how to cook a turkey, right? It goes back to this example. Somebody once said they were watching their grandmother cook a turkey. She cut the end of it off and put it in a pan and put it in the oven. And the grandchild goes, well, why'd you cut the end of the turkey off? She goes, well, that's how my grandmother did it. That's how we cook a turkey. That's how you're supposed to do it. Okay.
I see where you're going.
Sure. Yeah. And you put it in the oven and it cooks. It's great, whatever. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that says you have to cut the end of the turkey off unless you're so traditional and stuck in your ways. That's fine. But eventually the world starts to see that pattern,
Yeah.
And
the world's going to move on whether you like it or not. So if, you have to change your habits or change just
correct
things to fit into this. Yeah.
There's nothing that says you have to do things that way, and what we had to accept was that there were some, not traditions. I mean, you still have your traditions of, if you have a Christmas party or if you, do things a special way that, don't relate to the productivity of your company. That's all fine and dandy. If you like to, use a highlighter on your blueprints, that's fine. You can continue to do that. That has nothing to do with how your customer feels at the end of the day. So, having nice equipment, if you really get to know your business and you look at it and break down the numbers and you say, wow, I spent $15,000 this year on maintenance just on my, my old pickup truck. That's a drag. Well, what's a new payment? What's a payment on a brand new truck? It's probably, I don't know, $10,000 a year. So you're already, you would be saving money. You have a brand new truck and you're probably not going to have to worry about maintenance for 3 years, depending on how much you drive or whatever. So, I mean, these are just little things that we started to look at and say, okay, well, let's go ahead and pull the trigger on this. A new buggy would probably make sense at this point. This one's broken. We're spending, $6,000 a year renting stuff. We have a rule now. If we rent something more than 3 times, we're buying it. And that's not a new idea. I mean, you can go to the World of Concrete and hear people speak on this or, any other place. That's not a new idea. A lot of these things are basic business principles from other industries. It's just concrete guys tend to be a little bit hard-headed. Takes us a little longer to learn these things.
Yeah.
So it's not, these aren't proprietary, ideas. This isn't anything new. It's just actually sit down, see what you're spending on some things, and next thing you know, you may make an obvious decision to save money, get a new buggy or get a new dingo or a new truck. And next thing you know, you get a new truck, and next thing you know, you have somebody call in and say, hey, are you guys hiring? And it's like, yeah, I've seen your truck around. It's really, it's clean looking. So, I think there's some energy that starts to compound once you really start to take that stuff seriously. It pays, dividends. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Welcome to the 2022 Flatwork Kings Mastermind event, our second inaugural event from Flatwork Kings. Will be hosted in Indianapolis, Indiana at the Delta Hotels by Marriott Indianapolis Airport. The dates for the event will be February 5th and 6th, all-day education, with a meet and greet hosted Friday evening on the 4th. For more information, visit flatworkkings.com, and you can find tickets and pricing there, as well as hotel group reservations. Thank you. And is it automation's a good topic? I think.
Oh yeah, that's kind of where I was going, but I mean,
Yeah.
either way it led into it.
Yeah, so to tailor off of what makes, what can make life easier for a contractor, know,
Yes.
because when you're looking at, okay, good customer service, it requires a lot of time. It requires an office person almost, right? That's what we just talked about.
Yes.
You got to find an office person to answer your phone. And if you're already there, do you need a second one? Or do you need another layer of communication? Do you need a project manager? This is a natural progression of things. So, what we saw was, okay, we have an office person. Now all of a sudden she's really busy answering the phone for current customers. So we had to get another office person just to answer the phone for obviously new calls, trying to get an estimate. So, it scaled up from there. But as this person started to be the sole communicator with customers, all of a sudden we saw a need for that. Oh,
Yeah.
we should probably get a project manager.
Somebody to oversee all just from start to finish, making sure it starts on time, finishes on time.
Exactly.
So you're having the right people for the right job is crucial in this business.
Absolutely. When you see somebody start to, drown in the work, I mean that's a clear time to make a decision to hire somebody and put them in that role, or dial it back. If you're not comfortable handling it well or handling it the right way, which would be to either automate some of the communication and learn how to, I know there's a lot of concrete guys listening to this or out there that say, I'm computer illiterate. I don't like being on my phone. I don't like being on email. So you will have to do things the hard way. Hire somebody who is good at those things. If you are computer literate and you're faithful in your ways around your phone and you're willing to do some technological things that are outside your comfort zone, there's a ton of things out there. You can just Google automating, customer communication. I mean, it's a simple. There's programs out there that are probably $10 a month you can use that send your customer a text message or whatever based on your calendar. If you, again, those are things that you graduate to those levels, and all of a sudden customers, they feel like they're getting more attention, and your business is growing. That's the trifecta.
Yeah.
That's really the sweet spot, where a customer can honestly leave you a good review at the end of the day thinking, I got all the attention I needed, even though I was one of 1,000 customers this year. That's a big accomplishment, and if you do 1,000 customers like we did our first year that we really boomed, and we got 16 one-star reviews and a bunch of guff from people that were like, geez, this was a disaster. They didn't even call before they showed up. And there was just lapses in communication, right? Because we were growing faster than we could handle our communication lines. So we were like, we'd show up somewhere and say, did you call this person yesterday? I don't know. I thought she did. Or, it was just a lot of, that game of telephone. I thought this person handled it. So we clearly saw that we had some internal things to work on as we were growing. So automation came into play. And, that was a big part of how it got us to where we are now, and I think that's going to be a big thing moving forward in the next 1 or 2 years is, what can we do to cut back on the work for our own employees? How can we really fine tune things? Are we doing redundant work? Is one person putting a tool in this side of the truck and then somebody's unloading it at the other side of the truck, putting boards on top of it, and then you literally see a guy taking those boards off and handing it to another guy on the other side of the truck. It's just, you start to really see where you can get efficient if you can sit back, take a deep breath, and look at things for what they are, and truthfully admit, where you're getting defeated, because a lot of people's ego gets in the way too. And it's like, I don't need help.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't.
I've been
This
doing
does.
this
This
for 20
can't.
years, and yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not.
This is the way it is. This
Yeah.
I do this just fine, and if anybody doesn't like it, then hey, see ya. I'm not concerned about it. If that's your attitude, that's probably you gotta lay with that. That's the bed you make, and you got to deal with that. It's chaos though. It's chaos having that attitude.
So it kind of stems back to managing expectations, and just in a customer driven business.
Yeah.
One of the biggest faults I think is how to just manage expectations to make sure they know what they're getting.
Yeah, and they know that they know what they're getting into. We had a lot of people at first that were like, I really wasn't expecting this much lawn damage. Still hear that from time to time, but it's a lot less than it used to be. It was like every patio we did, it was I really wasn't expecting this much damage. Even if we brought some dirt back and backfilled the job or put something around it, it was still a lot of yeah, the patio's really nice, but my driveway's all dirty. You guys came up the street, my neighbor's complaining about the street. How can we address these things? And there's always things you can technically do better. When I say technically, like, okay, what hose nozzle are you using? Or what pressure washer do you run? Those are technical things that you can easily YouTube and figure out, what's the best tool out there for the job. But so, what we learned was our needs, were a little different based on the different job types. And eventually what we got into was kind of an explainer packet on paper. It was still a lot of paper or just a PDF through email. And it was a lot of manual work. It was a lot of like, okay, I got to sit down and email 10 people because we got 10 jobs next week. And it was just like, that was the effort that we were putting into it. We had people that were sitting down and going manually through a list and saying, okay, we got 15 jobs next week. I better email all of them. And hopefully they read this email, and there was no checks or balances or, there was nothing that said they opened the email. Nowadays you have technology. You can see if they open it. You can see if they watched a video you sent them. You can, as the sender, there are things you can do to check those boxes. So, we've invested a lot in explainer videos, basic like whiteboard type videos where you have a cartoon that's like, hey, you're about to have a patio done and here's what happens and da 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 da. And that's not like a new thing to the world. You see those videos all the time with like prescription drugs or, a roof or windows or solar panels or a hot tub or whatever. And concrete contractors need to realize that those type of marketing, you could call them marketing techniques or expectation setting techniques, but those things are not unique to any industry. You can use it in concrete. So I believe that we've seen a net benefit from doing those things.
Yeah.
So it might cost, X amount of dollars to like produce a video or do it on your phone or whatever. It doesn't have to be your first edit. I think ours was like literally a montage that we put together, in Windows, or it was like on our phone. Yeah. It was just a montage of like different pictures of a job and then a voiceover, a crackly voiceover. And it was like,
yeah,
this is what your patio will look like. And this is the next page. And it would like go to the next picture. And I might still be on our website. I don't know. But that was the first step we took to say, okay, we're done repeating ourselves. That's a lot of work, repeating yourself to everybody. So we're just going to send these people our terms and conditions. We're going to send these people a checklist that they need to check off. They need to check a box that says, hey, I do need a landscape referral. And I do need, my mailbox to be reinstalled at the end of the job. Those are just little things that a lot of people just either subliminally love the chaos of not being organized, or, maybe it makes their day exciting. Like, oh, well, I'll never address this. I don't know why people keep asking for their porch post to be reinstalled. This is crazy. Well, we dealt with that for a year, and we were like, well, there's got to be a better way. So we started to give our customers a checklist. Like, okay, here's all the list of things that can go sideways when we tear off the porch from your house. is your basement underneath the porch? Is the porch actually part of the roof of your basement? You know, I mean, everybody's been there, right? But it would be great to get that answered ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know,
Even having all these all this information in place for them to read and be notified of what could be, you still will get some rapid fire from them about something, even though we went over it.
absolutely.
And so just having that in place alone is going to significantly just decrease any of that.
Yeah, it's going to reduce callbacks. It's going to reduce, I guess, not being satisfied with the job. Because a lot of the little things started to outshine the project. Because we were doing beautiful projects, beautiful installation. Take 3 days, go in, tear out a whole driveway, big old driveway, and do stamp borders, get it all done, knocked out. Start on Monday, get done on Wednesday. What is there to be unhappy about? It's a beautiful job. Well, you hit a couple sprinkler heads, you tear off a limb from a tree with the concrete truck, whatever. Those little incidental things can outshine the entire job. So we were doing, we thought we were doing a good job, but in reality, homeowners just want to see a certain set of things. They may have a certain set of expectations in their mind that may be totally different from the next customer. So you got to try to figure that out before you start the job. You don't want to pull up on the job with the Bobcat and 10 guys and have somebody come out with a level and overalls on thinking that they're going to work with you that day. Mm-hmm. This has happened to everybody. So just a little, not to go down a rabbit hole, but what we started to do with that was we told people our insurance will not allow you on the job site. We're not going to cover you getting injured working alongside us. Cause you have some overzealous homeowners. Maybe somebody has an engineering background or maybe they're retired and they want to get out and get involved. Those kind of things can hinder how the job goes. It can hinder how your guys perform on the job because they're being distracted. And just little things like that we can put in front of people ahead of time that says, hey, don't take off a day of work. Keep going to work. We're working outside of your house. We don't need to come in and use the bathroom. We've dealt with that. We had an employee one time that went in and, did a Dumb and Dumber at somebody's house, like he was like, hey, I got to go to the bathroom. And I was like, okay, go to the truck, whatever. And he disappeared for like 30 minutes. And this, God bless him. I mean, he was a high school kid. He was new or whatever, but I did not direct him specifically on, what he should do or how he should handle it. I just said, okay, whatever. I just brushed it off. He came back 30 minutes later and said he went inside, used the bathroom. The people let him in awkwardly. They probably weren't expecting a kid to knock on the door all sweaty, covered in dirt, wanting to use the bathroom. Well, it turned out it was the number 2. And the bathroom, this is a historic home. The bathroom's 300 years old. It's not meant for a high school kid that just got done eating a protein shake, So, yeah, he did some work in there, and that's embarrassing. So, yeah, just stuff like that. It's like, that's not that can really put a damper on how well of a job you're doing. Okay, so I thought we were doing a good job that day. Well, the homeowner went to sleep with a little bit different view on things that night, Mm-hmm. Like, well, their guy came in and clogged our toilet. And, sure, it looks like they made good progress, but we might need to call a plumber,
Yeah.
That is the kind of professionalism that you have to you got to put a bite on that. you gotta come up with a plan.
Yes.
And, so occasionally your employees may have to do that, but going into the residential customer's house to do that is probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so we've gone over quite a bit of stuff, kind of loaded interview here, but, what is, just conclusion of just being reliable and just all these things that, ultimately lead to more jobs, more money, basically, and more just building the pipeline.
Yeah. Pipeline is probably the key word there. So, I mean, I think, again, back to money. I mean, I don't think that should be the motivator for anyone. I think a little bit of ego comes into play, and you're like, I'm going to do $1 million for the first time ever in a year. And when we did that, we made less money than we ever made, ever. So there's not really a point of which you say, oh, I'm a big boy now, or I'm doing big work and whatnot. But if you're working 24 hours a day and you're not making a bunch of money, or you're not doing as well as you did before, there's something wrong there, and you gotta attack that, because you shouldn't do either of those things. You shouldn't be losing peace, whether it's at home or whatever. Your employees got to go home eventually too. Everybody likes overtime in this industry, but there is a limit. Everybody has a limit. So if you're working on Sundays and you're literally out there working on a job, and most customers really don't even like that either. But you get, you want to be on the receiving end of anything. You got to be ready to catch any curveball. So a customer might email you on a Sunday. That's fine. That's easy work. You got to learn to accept that. But to put out work on Sunday, and if you're driving around to Lowe's and you're doing things to get ready for Monday, that's part of the grind. You're in that position because that's where you are. But that doesn't have to carry on forever. You gotta understand there needs to be processes in your business, no matter what size you are. Even if you're a 5-person business, there's no reason that you should be going to Lowe's on Sunday night. Period. I can tell you that from experience. We've been there, done that. If you start to keep one extra roll of plastic at your shop, you shouldn't be at Lowe's on Sunday night. You shouldn't even be at Lowe's in the morning. You need to go do those things during business hours.
Get all the things you need.
Yeah, just be prepared, keep your customer informed, and do your best. And then a lot of times, if you can check those 3 boxes, you're going to be doing pretty darn good. You cannot, you can't keep living in chaos though. You have to address what is causing you the most chaos, and usually when you address those things, then the other things start to fall in place, like profit and employee retention, happiness with your job, all those things. But the chaos is what drives people crazy. The chaos is what drives your customers crazy. Oh, they just got here to start this morning. They're texting their friend. They're looking at their Ring camera. They're like, oh, yeah, it looks like Mattingly's on the job this morning, right on time. Oh, where are they? Oh, it looks like they had to dip out. I better call them. I better, and then all of a sudden it's more calls. It's more communication that you can avoid. You don't need your whole crew to jump in the truck and go get an elbow from Lowe's. It's ridiculous. We did that. You got to squash that. So it could go on, but in summary, I think that those are the 3 key boxes. You got to stop the chaos. We had a motto one year. I think it was "Stop the Madness." And when you make that your motto for a year, that you can get a lot done. You get a lot of self-reflecting done. We can't keep going on this way. We can't. It's just, we can't. You got to have an away message, just like AIM back in the day. If you're an 80s or 90s kid, you had an AIM and you had an away message that's like, my parents aren't letting me on the computer tonight. Now's the time. You got to put that away message up. If people are, you got a contractor that's bothering you or whatever, you just got to face the music, tell them what your working hours are, and, stop that chaos so you can really start to think about what your business is doing. So, with that, I'll conclude.
Excellent.
I'm in. Thanks for tuning in to the Flatwork Kings podcast, where support, learn, and grow are mainstays of our mission. Learn more at flatworkkings.com or in our Facebook group at Flatwork Kings.